Hey, thanks and welcome back. It's a real pleasure to welcome back in studio every week for 26th year now that we've been doing this. Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor, the exclusive financial advisor to the Hurley in the Morning program. And this is Chuck's weekly financial program. Chuck leads his own group, the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office, to reach the team. The Malamut team, 609-383-2010, 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs. You'll be in very good hands. Tell Chuck and the entire group that I sent you Hurley in the Morning. And the following program that you're going to have the pleasure to listen to is presented by Chuck, who is with Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed are those of Chuck, do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast. They're subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member SIPC. Chuck, good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
Good to have you, my man. What's going on?
Well, Harry, as you know, the Bank of Japan basically, I guess it was Thursday night when we were sleeping, decided it was in their country's best interest to go to a negative interest rate, where very, very similar to the QE that was happening in Europe is now rolling over to Japan. And as a result of that, caught the markets completely off guard and by surprise, resulting in a very, very big day on Friday. When you look at it, think about this for a second. We increase in December. God bless you.
Thank you, Chuck.
We increased the Fed fund rate in December by 25 basis points. Now, granted, it was the first increase that we've had in basically a decade. And there was a lot of discussion around the Fed. Did they wait too long? Should they have waited longer? Did they increase rates at the right time? Should they not have increased? I mean, you had all this rhetoric that had transpired, around that Fed meeting in December. So rates go up by 25 basis points. The market, the equity markets, the move initially was rather muted, with not a lot of noise, so to speak, that had transpired. And then we turned the page in January, and as we look at 2016, you would think, Harry, that something dramatically changed between December 31st and January 1.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, so what happened was that the markets basically said, we're now going to now turn very defensive. And it resulted in one of the worst Januaries that we had since the inception, basically, of the equity markets. So what happened on Friday was, was a lot of relief, especially those who sort of have to mark their book, so to speak, at the end of the month. So with the S&P moving up almost 50 points last Friday, up about 2.5%. So the rally erased some of the losses for January, although the index still was down 5%. So I think what the Fed is faced with here, and I know that you're a true believer in the unemployment rate at 5%, give or take.
Yes, because they would never lie.
But as we all know, it's really what drives that is the participation rate. How many people are out there actually looking for employment.
Which is basically a record number.
On the low side.
Yeah, we have the lowest, that's a good way to put it, exactly. Between what I said and you said, it was accurate, because mine could be misconstrued. It's the lowest work participation rate in at least, I think, 40 years, maybe more.
So you think about this for a second. The Bank of Japan makes the move, and again, it caught everybody, by surprise. I know that you go to bed
pleasantly, right?
Yeah, I know you go to bed rather early
yes.
in the evening.
Yeah,
so
when I get to go to bed.
So you didn't see this on Thursday until you woke up on Friday,
right?
As I was getting ready, one of the things that obviously that I do every evening is I check before I go to bed. As to what's happening in international markets. And I looked a couple times during the evening, and then I looked. I don't know what time it was. It was right before I went to bed, and I thought for sure that the indices were wrong because it had to be. Sometimes they have a misprint. And I waited a few minutes. I looked again, and lo and behold, no, they were in fact correct. So all the indices, whether they were, in the Far East, and then obviously carrying over to Europe, they did very, very well.
Chuck, I have to say, I do like it once in a while because there's so much information at our fingertips, and there's so much sort of word on the street. A lot of things get telegraphed where even if you don't know exactly what day it's going to happen, usually within a short range time period of when something's going to happen. Yeah, I think you'll agree with this. It's unusual for something this major to get sprung on their nation and the world that nobody saw coming.
Harry, look, a very, very well-kept secret. And so now here's what happens. The Fed is certainly in a quandary because you go ahead and make that move, Bank of Japan, followed by, the move that was made in Europe. And we increase our rates, in December of 2015. So while the initial movement was somewhat subdued, taken by the equity markets, in particular in the bond markets, clearly in the month of January between oil, the correlation now of oil being at oil now, Harry, the correlation between oil and the equity markets is at 95%. So as oil goes, so is the equity market. Traditionally, the correlation is about 50%. So we're dealing with that. We're dealing with, globally speaking, declining interest rates, and the Fed's out there saying, "Oh, geez, maybe we need to increase rates 4 times this year because our economy is strong, our unemployment rate is low, and there's now, basically some impact with wage increases." That's starting to be felt within the economy. So
companies are actually giving employees raises again.
Well, they are, but I think bottom line, if you look at the materials sector of the equity markets, you look at the industrial sectors of the equity markets, if you look at the energy patch sector of the equity markets, certainly what is happening there does not indicate, Harry, that we are, in a bona fide, legitimate, strong economy.
Well, yeah, with fourth quarter revised GDP lowered to 0 to 0.7, fractional growth would absolutely support that statement. And I know there are a lot of people, Chuck, listening right now that have worked the past 7 years and haven't gotten an increase, not one, because there's an atmosphere, hey, you're lucky you have your job. And look, everybody is fortunate to have a job, and you want to work hard, but you also want to have comfort and security that you're going to have a job, and working hard for your boss, your company, should come along with it, a fair evaluation every year. I don't know if you agree with this or not, Chuck, but I believe it's true. We've been taken out of everything that was normal in terms of the way that things were done for so many years. In its place, quote unquote, this new normal. Well, other than the Great Depression, do you recall a period in recent American history where people would go 7 years without a pay increase?
No, Harry.
It's disgusting.
And look, 2% GDP.
Or 0.7.
But
I get
annualized the rate. Yeah. It just doesn't make it. And
I think if you actually add up the entire 7 years, it's not even 2%. It's less than 2%.
Now, conversely, on the flip side, take a look at earnings as they're coming. They have been basically moved down by the analysts, as so the bar has been lowered, so to speak, and as we were getting through the fourth quarter, so the majority of the earnings that are coming, for the most part, have been relatively good. A few really nice surprises. Particularly if you take a look at Alphabet last night.
I was just going to say, Chuck, and I know you don't talk about any one particular stock at a finite level, but we will occasionally entertain mentioning certain companies. Alphabet Inc., for those listening, formerly Google, they surpassed Apple Inc. as the most valuable company in the United States of America. This took place in after-hours trading. That's something that, based on the trajectory of Apple, nobody really saw this coming. This is also, I think, sort of shocking, isn't it?
Well, Harry, when you have two stocks going in different directions, certainly.
How does Apple go from record revenue to having such a problem all at the same time? Because they have nothing.
I'm not going to call it. I think the best way to describe that company is it truly viewed as a technology company now. They have obviously a lot in the pipeline, but can they, in fact, are they as nimble as they used to be? I think that's pretty much the best way to summarize it.
Well, they're also being hit hard, Chuck, because it's their lowest shipping of iPhones in 13 years. So they're getting crushed for that.
Yeah, they are, but I think, Harry, again, as you mentioned, we're not going to chat about individual stocks, but I think certainly that, if you
But what I said is statistically accurate.
I think basically it's a tale of two cities, okay? And, if you take a look at, Google is truly a technology company. Is Apple still in that space, or should they be viewed as something a little bit different? I think that's pretty much one of the major differences between the two companies.
Yeah, it is interesting. So for our listeners, and this is not Chuck saying this, it's me, because I know this is true, if each of these companies open up this morning and the two company shares open around where they are right now, then Alphabet will actually surpass Google as the most valuable company in America. And I think that is a shocker.
Yeah. So, Harry, when we go back and look at and I'm going to go back to the Fed here because we got off track here a little bit.
We'll go back to the Fed right after the first break. We're going to come right back with Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor to the Hurley in the Morning program, 609-383-2010. That's the number to reach Chuck and his team, 609-383-2010. Let me share something with you that I want Chuck to sign up for. I want Bill Malamut to sign up for it. I want Pam Malamut. I want Frankie. I want Marley. I want all the Malamuts and everybody listening to go to my Facebook page. Yes, believe it or not, Chuck Malamut is on Facebook. Active, I don't know, how we would respond to that, but he is there. So, Chuck, I want you to go to Brother Harry's Facebook page, and here's what I'm doing, because I am benevolent. I am your humble public servant, the people's mayor of the morning, with a term I've been elected for life. In a program that we support term limits, it is the only position where term limits we oppose. So, Chuck, I want you to go to Harry Hurley on Facebook, and you will read, as a thank you to all of our listeners, wherever you may be, that's around the world, I am holding a Super Bowl wing party contest on my Facebook page. The winner receives a really nice prize. So it's real simple to do. You go to Harry Hurley on Facebook, and you have to like the post. If you don't do both steps, you're not eligible to be considered. I thank you in advance for liking the post. Second, in the comments section, you pick the winning team and the score of Super Bowl 50. And in fact, if Chuck will give his prediction, all you have to do is go the other way, and you're going to win the wing party. So we got that going for us. So Super Bowl Sunday is this February 7th Sunday. You just have to get your like of this post and your prediction in before kickoff. And since they do such a great job on Facebook of timestamping every one, if it happens after the game begins, we're drawing the line, and you just won't be eligible. It's not fair once the game starts. If more than one person correctly picks the winner and the exact score, I will hold a random drawing to pick our overall prize grand winner. So the prize is this, and we thank our very, very good friend and broadcast partner, Champ Hoffman, because once a week we're going to be giving away a wing party for up to 20 people. It's as many as 150 wings or boneless wings. I like the boneless ones myself. For up to 20 guests at the Tropicana Casino Hotel at Hooters in Atlantic City. All that you have to do is you're required to buy one, soda or something and pay the gratuity. But all the wings are complimentary, up to 150. And if the winner is from out of state, you can gift it to a local friend. You would just tell me who that local is. So I want everybody to play. Let's have fun with this, and thank you for listening to Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 1450. Already 29 people have liked it in just a short while. So I think we're going to get a lot of play on this. I hope you'll join in. Chuck, you go on Facebook once every 3 years. Will you go on your account, and would you like that and enter the contest?
If you remind me, Harry,
right.
I can do that.
I'll send you a text message. 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be back. He is Chuck Malamut, my official, make him yours, your official financial advisor. Back in a moment.
If you're talking about it, Harry Hurley's talking about it right now. Call 609-407-1450. Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 1450 and WPG1450.com.
With Chuck Malamut, our official financial advisor, we continue. Chuck, you were going to mention the Fed.
Yeah, so Harry, if you think about what was initially projected after the December meeting, the Fed was looking at targeting 4 increases in 2016.
Yeah,
so
they ain't looking now.
So for the most part, there's about a 25% likelihood that they go in March.
Well, who are those lunatics?
No, but no. Well, there's always as you mentioned before the break. If you want to win the Super Bowl, whatever Chuck tells you, go the other way.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you, Harry.
The contrarian.
So there's 25% out there that think that the Fed will make a move in March. It's now anticipated.
Isn't it really closer to 100%? If we're just,
I think it
come
should
on.
be. I mean,
that's insane.
So if you look at 2016, it's anticipated the Fed might initiate 1 increase in 2016. Some economists are suggesting reducing rates, actually, taking that 25 basis points off the table.
What's the percentage of that?
It's about 25% as well.
For me, I would probably do neither. I would say I wouldn't have done the 1 increase because I knew things were not what they were saying it was. But I would go and reverse it before I would go and increase it again.
Well, you think about the psychology behind all that.
That would be a very negative event, wouldn't it?
It would, and I'm not quite.
That's why I'm saying I would leave it.
I'm not quite certain the equity markets would, be rather entertaining of that. And I think what would happen is it could create a fair amount of dislocation in the equity market. So, the Fed had a 2.5% target rate, Harry, and their goal was to have that in place by the end of year 2017. So not this year, but the following year. So that now seems to be pushed back at a minimum to the first quarter of 2018, maybe the middle of 2018. So for the Fed to move rates to their initial targeted rates, oil and commodities, which we continue to talk about, need upward movement. That is not that. Last week the oil market rallied fairly significantly. Today we're giving that back, and as a result, what is happening in the equity markets, as we mentioned earlier, that 95% correlation trading to oil. So as oil goes, so will the equity markets. CPI is at about 1.6% and declining. The Fed is looking for increasing CPI. Inflation, in the meantime, needs to be greater than 2%. So if the Fed does decide to make an upward move and increase rates, they can say this is due to an improved employment, as employment is been advertised at 5%, and there's an increased pressure on wages. So I think.
So in other words, you're saying they could make a legitimate case by the book where they could justify a rate increase.
They could.
It would be a very unpopular one.
Well, Harry, I think it would be unpopular, and two, it would be certainly counterintuitive to what's going on in the rest of the world. As we started and spent a lot of time talking about, BOJ, with basically going to a negative interest rate, savings rate. The other thing that's happening here is that for years we have always talked about the economy being what? A 3-legged stool.
Yes.
And the consumer is obviously part and parcel of all that.
By the way, other than our area, would real estate be holding up its rung on the stool? I think real estate is.
For the
first time in a while.
Parts of Florida, Texas, Arizona, California, Nevada. Yeah, I mean certainly their real estate has improved significantly. If you think about Florida several years ago, 08, 09, they were giving properties away. So there has been a lot of improvement there. But when you talk about the consumer, Harry, what is happening? You would have by now anticipated what I'll describe as the oil dividend. That has not showed up, and the oil prices started falling in 2014. Many observers thought for sure they would see an increase in consumers and business spending, and it doesn't appear that has yet to happen.
Has anyone analyzed, Chuck, the impact that Iran could have on oil?
It has, Harry, and I think that's
Is this a small matter, or is this a potentially big matter?
I think it's more. It's not. It's not going to be a big event per se.
Good.
But what is happening when you go back to the consumer? Most of us thought by now, the consumer would be out spending. And the opposite has happened. The savings rate is now pushed through 5%. Now, you would think that's good. We are now beginning to save and be focused on retirement and savings.
Aren't people saving out of fear of a lack of confidence?
They are.
So it'd be wonderful if people were saving and it was practical and there was a healthy environment and all this was good indicators. But I sensed, and you seem to agree, that the premise behind it all is a fear of not knowing what's coming next.
You're absolutely correct. So maybe as we get through this year, there'll be some more clarity as to the direction that we're going to take as a country. So
what are the fundamentals in terms of the year ahead? Obviously, it shocked a lot of people how things opened right out of the box in early January. Very unusual to have what we had occur. What is the general feeling about the year?
Well, I think as we got into the beginning of the year, they were, most analysts were calling for a challenging year where you would have a positive equity market, somewhat subdued, compared to previous years. But the fact that you think about 2015 was a year we went nowhere.
Right.
2014 was relatively higher, but it wasn't a fantastic year. So typically you come off back-to-back years like that, you should have an upward bias with respect to equities.
But now, 14 compared to 15 was considered to happy joy. 14
compared, yeah, exactly. So now the question is, and there's a lot of analysts that hang their hat on, well, as January goes, so does the rest of the equity markets for the year. So with putting in a 5% decline in the S&P during the month of January, we have a fair amount of work to get accomplished. And I think, Harry, a lot you got to think about. Here's what your listeners need to think about
after the break. Cliffhanger. I love leaving Chuck with cliffhangers. 32 minutes past the hour. One more power segment with Chuck coming up in just 2.5 minutes. 609-383-2010. That's the hotline for the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office. 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs.
Hurley, Beck, Hannity, and me. It's Mark Levin, weeknights from 6 to 9 on WPG Talk Radio, 1450.
Thank you, great one. And we will be back to another great one. Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, and you can do the same. Proclaim it simply by calling Chuck at 609-383-2010, and then let Chuck and his team show you their perfected concept of total asset management coupled with the all-important asset allocation. And as I always say, don't do as I say, do as I do. Chuck is my exclusive financial advisor. Let me just take a moment, and we'll get back to Chuck, just to brag a little bit about my official and exclusive country club for the Hurley in the Morning program, Harbor Pines Golf Club. Located at 500 St. Andrews Drive. Even their name is legendary. They're in Egg Harbor Township. It's so simple to get to. For me, oh my gosh, it's a home game. I can sneak the back way down 559 and come right in towards the back way, or I can get out onto Zion Road and make a right-hand turn when I'm coming from Scullville onto Ocean Heights and then straight down on the right-hand side. Very centrally located, very convenient, and Harbor Pines Golf Club is owned and let me tell you, well attended to by the legendary Gerwick's family. They run a top-notch operation, as everything that they do in their multi-faceted platforms of things that they're involved with. That many, many people listening now, just the name tells you, for generations, their footprint and their brand is really outstanding. You'll thoroughly enjoy at Harbor Pines Golf Club working with General Manager Alan Greenman, Director of Sales and Marketing Debbie Stevenson. They have a great team, great follow-up systems, their overall service, attention to detail, excellent. They stand for quality of product and service, and we have chosen the Harbor Pines Golf Club to be the official home of the 9th Annual Hurley in the Morning Golf Open, set for Friday morning, June 17th. So put that down in your daytimer. We're going to be updating at harryhurley.com before the end of this week, hopefully, with all of not only some of the grant recipients, but everything that's going to be taking place. Debbie, who is a certified golf planner, in fact, the only certified golf planner in all of South Jersey, put together a great program for our event coming up on Friday, June 17th. You'll love the course. You'll feel like you are a member of a private country club. The diverse taste of the most discriminating golfer served extraordinarily well at this attractive and yet available public golf course, Harbor Pines Golf Club. You'll see 5 sets of tees, large tee boxes, 17 acres of breathtaking water. They also have strategic placed bunkers to challenge your game as well, and they have excellent practice facilities. Morning, midday, twilight tee times are available, and from the membership standpoint, full, limited, twilight, and associate level memberships are available as well. You can also turn to them on the World Wide Web at harborpines.com, and there is a great multi-course, 4-course dinner for Valentine's Day that you will absolutely love. Plenty of time to make your reservation. Call 609-927-0006 to reserve. And what they've done, which I think is really nice, you hear about a Valentine's dinner, but maybe Valentine's Day itself isn't the day you want to do this. Maybe instead of Sunday, the 14th of this month, you would like to have your Valentine's celebration with that special someone on Saturday, the 13th, the day before. Call 609-927-0006, and they have a number of tee times that are available for the Harbor Pines Golf Club Valentine's Dinner, a special 4-course dinner menu, wonderful gourmet selections, and you're looking at a very reasonable $39 per person. Your seating times are Saturday from 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on the day before Valentine's Day. That's Saturday, February 13th, and then Sunday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Valentine's Day, Sunday, February 14th itself. Live entertainment by Jim Fisher, who is a very accomplished acoustic guitarist. And again, all you have to do is dial 609-927-0006, extension 23, and please tell Harbor Pines Golf Club that Hurley in the Morning sent you. Chuck, we left a cliffhanger if you remember right where you were. If not,
please remind me.
I don't remember. But it was great. I said, hold that till right after the break. It was really good. I don't remember where we were. We were in the area, and maybe this will jog your memory. We were talking about consumer confidence. You were talking about the amount of savings, 5% savings that's taking place. I then went into that, is it because, people, out of fear almost, that people were saving? And you were going to go into something else, and I honestly just don't remember.
So, Harry, here's where we are. If you take a look at the equity markets last week, let me back up. As we got into the beginning of January, and we flipped the page, it was sort of a risk on type attitude, and sell at any cost. It really doesn't much matter, and we're not going to measure the market based on fundamentals. We're going to base it more on emotion, and we're going to base it more on momentum type trading. So, as earnings come, a lot of market watchers aren't terribly sure as to where we're going in 2016. And then last week, as we mentioned, with BOJ, what happened was the Now we get a big move on the upside, and quite frankly, Harry, there was no initially there was no deterioration in fundamentals to speak of.
You say that like it's an obvious surprise that there's not?
No. I'm saying in the beginning of January, there was not enough deterioration in fundamentals to warrant the move in the equity markets. And conversely...
But I guess it was China, right?
No, and now the opposite has occurred in a relatively short period of time. The rally that we just worked our way through over the last week or so is a function of a shift more in sentiment rather than an improvement in fundamentals. So now the market is certainly not trading on fundamentals.
I agree. Was the opening bad start largely China-driven?
I think it's obviously China-driven. I think a lot, again, as we mentioned a couple times earlier today, the fact that the market is now coupled directly to oil. And you can't, historically it doesn't work that way. So we're going to need to work our way out of that. And I'm not quite certain, how and when that happens, but it will.
Chuck, I have to say this. I love Bill Malamut. I had to like it. It's just so funny. I'm asking for everyone to participate and like my post on Facebook, and it's basically sort of an extension of the Early in the Morning program, but not doing it over the air because we don't have time to take what will probably wind up being a couple hundred predictions. So rather than just take 200 phone calls, I moved this over to a digital sort of reward program for our great guest listeners. And Bill Malamut he liked it, so he followed the first missive. The first instruction is to like the post. I actually wrote someone through Facebook to say you have to like it because they only put their prediction, but they didn't like it. You follow the rules. First you like it, then you put your score. Bill Malamut put Denver 45, Eagles 0. It's too good. Then he followed right up on himself. And he has his prediction of Denver 24, Carolina 21. I really think he is spot on with that prediction. And I'm going to give people a little bit of this has no bearing on what score you want to pick. And, I just want to have fun with this and give a very, very expensive, nice wing party that you can bring up to 19 people and yourself up to 20 people. But I'm going to be a little bit of a contrarian. A lot of people would probably think that Carolina could blow out, either it's going to be a close game or Carolina could blow out Denver. I have a sneaky suspicion that the game will be moderately close. However, if there is a blowout, that it will be Denver doing the blowing out. I know that Carolina has been putting crazy points on the board, and especially in the first half for the whole playoff season in both games that they played. But I think that Denver, with that defense and probably the end of Peyton Manning's career, he's probably approaching this game like he is never stepping out on that field to play again. And that, to me, when you still have game and you have that level of incentive and you're the type of pro that it's kind of like a Michael Jordan type thing, or Babe Ruth when he was horrible at the end, but he got it all together and hit 3 home runs in a goofy Braves uniform. I just think Peyton Manning has one great game left in him. You have any feeling about that game, Chuck?
Look, I certainly hope so. I'm a big Peyton Manning fan. And to watch him, he was hurt, during the season. Now, how much he was hurt is anybody's question.
Well, I think he was hurt, and then when he came back and he was a backup, he wasn't hurt. But I think he was hurt, and it was the type of injury that you can't plant your foot and do the job. I think he was hurt.
And as much as I like Carolina, and I think Cam Newton is pretty good for the game. He's a good spokesman, and the fact every time they score,
I like that.
That they give the ball away to a kid in the in the stands, and they do a lot. But I tend to agree with you and Bill. You don't like to bet with your heart, but I'm going to be certainly rooting for Denver. Because I think you're right. I think this could be Peyton's last game, and you really want to go out on top. There's no doubt about it. I don't think it's going to be a blowout on either side, unless something gets very, very crazy quickly. But Denver has a fantastic defense.
Yep.
So don't forget.
Ask Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's right.
He's still sore. That guy is still sore this week.
Well, just think. Not to talk about football or individual games, but if you think about for a minute. and this is how the kicking game can change the game. That game last week was initially 7-0 Denver, 7-6
Missed extra point
with a missed extra point, and that
by a guy who never missed one.
Well, 1 out of 524. So you miss the extra point, it changes the complete complexion of the game, which forces you to take the 2 at the end.
Yep.
So anyway,
or that game goes overtime and anything can happen.
Mm-hmm. And I think the game probably would have gone the other way.
It seemed like it. It seemed like the Broncos were kind of leaking oil to the finish line, and if I was worried about it, because if New England tied it, I sensed that they probably would have won the game too.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm going to agree with you, Harry, and Brother Bill. I do not think it's a blowout. I think it's a really close game, and I'm hoping that it's a game that goes down to the wire, so it keeps everybody's interest, because
last year was incredible.
As you know, these games just go on and on and on. It's an event. There's no doubt about it.
Kirk Conover with a very interesting prediction. His prediction is that neither quarterback will throw up on the field. That's his homage to Donovan McNabb, who threw up in his mask when the Eagles had a chance. 3-point loss to the.
You guys are relentless.
You look at New England's Super Bowl wins and their losses. The 2 they lost to the Giants. Tom Brady could have a number of additional Super Bowl rings. One was 3 points. The other was 4 points. The one was that David Tyree catch,
right,
where he caught it on his helmet. His helmet caught the ball. I never saw anything like it in my life. Or that game was over. New England had the Super Bowl, and then they didn't. And then they won against the Eagles by 3. They beat Seattle last year by 3. You raise a good point that when you say you believe this will be a moderately close game. I looked at every score of all 49 Super Bowls, and most of them are very close. Mm-hmm. You do see blowouts, but most of them are close.
What's great about the Super Bowl, Harry, if you, if you have Comcast and you have this, and you have the NFL Network, every Super Bowl was out there.
It's so cool.
It is.
I
mean, I watched a couple. It's so much fun.
I mean, even watching like Bart Starr,
mm-hmm.
On the Ice Bowl,
right.
It's just amazing.
All right, Harry. Look, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I hope you and Brother Bill do okay.
Well, get on Facebook, and I need you to get in there.
I'll do my
Marley
best.
will show you how to get on Chuck Malamut on Facebook. It's easy.
Remind me. I'll ask her. Thank you.
Man. See you soon. You've been listening to Chuck Malamut in our 26th year together here on the Hurley in the Morning program, Chuck Malamut's financial program, each Tuesday in the 8 o'clock hour. Chuck leads his own group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office, the Malamut team. The Malamut Group, you can reach them at 609-383-2010, 609-383-2010. The program you just listened to was presented by Chuck Malamut from Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions that were expressed are those of Chuck, do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast. They're subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided today nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member, SIPC. A brief time out. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Don't go away. Wide open forum, ladies and gentlemen, the rest of the way.